In this video, I want to introduce you to the delicious dishes of the Far East. I will be traveling to 8 different and exotic countries, each with its own distinctive cuisine. Now, some of the ingredients that I shall be using may be unfamiliar to you, but you should be able to get them in some supermarkets, at ethnic grocers, and through mail order. I will tell you all about these ingredients at the end of the video. But now, on to the Far East. There are around 7,000 islands in the Philippine archipelago. The cooking is influenced by the Arabs and Chinese who came here to trade, by the Spanish who ruled the country from the mid-16th century until the beginning of the 20th century, and more recently by the Americans, whose colony this was after the Spanish. Filipinos love pork. At a beautiful Manila home, I ate one of the country's most popular pork dishes. It's called Adobo, and many people consider it to be the national dish of the Philippines. Adobo can be made out of many things. It can be made out of chicken, it can be made out of squid, and it can be made out of pork. Now, pork is the most loved meat in the Philippines, and for this dish they would probably use pork belly. I have used thin-cut pork chops, about 2 1/4 pounds of them. And these chops go into a very interesting marinade. It has a lot of vinegar in it. The vinegar is important because it pickles and it preserves at the same time, and that's very important in a hot country. So I have 6 tablespoons of white vinegar, 6 tablespoons of dark soy sauce, 3 bay leaves, a teaspoon of black peppercorns, and 4 cloves of garlic which have been chopped. All these ingredients are mixed together and the pork sits in this marinade for 1 hour. Now, the next thing to do is actually cook the chops. I have here about 3 tablespoons of oil. Into this oil, I will put about 8 cloves of garlic that have been very finely chopped. Just stir them around rather briefly, just let them get slightly brown. And then I put in all the pork chops, all their liquid. Now, there are about 4 fluid ounces of water, and this goes in as well. And now all you do is just reduce the heat, cover, and let the pork simmer very gently for about half an hour. And then you take the cover off, and you turn the heat up a little bit and reduce the sauce until the pork chops have a nice glaze on them. And that's really all there is to the dish. I would serve these pork chops with plain rice. Here on the island of Negros, the people eat simply. Their usual meal is rice, vegetables, and a little dried or fresh fish. The island is famous for its sugar plantations, but many of these are now being converted to prawn farms. Prawns are sometimes used in small quantities to flavor vegetables. I'm going to make stir-fried mange tout with prawns. Into this hot olive oil, I'm going to put 3 cloves of garlic, which have been finely chopped, 1 ounce of onion, which has also been finely chopped. And stir that around rather quickly. Doesn't need much cooking here. And then into this also goes about 4 prawns. They're raw prawns that have been peeled and deveined. Stir them around for just a few minutes. Actually, just a few seconds. It doesn't take more than that. And then in go the mange tout, 12 ounces of mange tout. Give them a quick stir. Put in about half teaspoon of salt. Stir that around quickly. And then put in about 4 fluid ounces of stock, any live stock, chicken stock or pork stock, doesn't matter. Now you should cover it as soon as you put the liquid in, because that contains the steam. And then you let it cook covered for about 1.5 minutes. That's all it takes. After it's cooked for 1.5 minutes, all it needs is a few grinds of black pepper. The colors are wonderful, and the dish has such a nice, clean, crisp taste. North and South Vietnam have been united since the last Americans left in 1975. The capital of the country is Hanoi, far to the north. Life here is hard and austere, and the people are still slowly coming to terms with being at peace. Here, many people eat out for breakfast at simple little cafes. The #1 favorite dish is pho, a fresh rice noodle soup which is enjoyed as a filling snack at any time of the day or night. They sit at rather low tables on small stools, and the seasonings on the table are quite interesting. There's fish sauce, which in Vietnam is called nuoc mam. It's made with fermented fish. And next to it is some vinegar. Next to that, some pounded red chilies and tomatoes. And of course, there are fresh red chilies all sliced up, so you can add as much saltiness and sourness and heat as you like, according to your taste. The Vietnamese would use fresh rice noodles, but we can't get them most of the time. So I'm going to use these dried noodles. They're fairly thin and translucent looking. These noodles need to be soaked in water for about 2 hours, after which time they're drained and dropped into a pot of boiling water. They cook very fast, but just about half a minute. Then you drain them again and drop them into cold water where they'll sit happily for a long time. You must have good stock. That is the basis of a good soup. And for a good stock, you need both meat and bones. So I have here 3 pounds of brisket and 4 pounds of nice marrow bones. These are the ordinary ingredients for every stock. Then there are some very special ingredients that give it a very Vietnamese taste. There is a 4-ounce onion and a large piece of ginger, both of which have been roasted in an oven for 30 minutes. There are 2 star anise, a stick of cinnamon, 2 tablespoons of fish sauce, and a teaspoon of salt. Now, the way to make the stock, as with all stocks, first the meat and bones go into the pot with the water. And you bring them to a boil and keep skimming them. There's a lot of scum, and you must take that out. Once you've got all the scum out, then you put in what I call the Vietnamese ingredients and cook for about 4.5 hours. Just remember to take the brisket out after about 2 hours. Just before you sit down to eat, you have to assemble the soup. The noodles can be heated by dropping them into a pot of boiling water. You can put them in a microwave oven. On top of the noodles goes the brisket, which was cooked earlier. It's been sliced very thin, and it gets laid on the top. Then, on top of the brisket goes raw meat. This is steak, which has been sliced very, very fine. It's easier to do this when it's been frozen first. Then you put the fresh herbs. There's fresh green coriander leaves, fresh mint, fresh green or red chilies, and fresh spring onions, which have been sliced very thin. Then I take the hot stock. This should be boiling. It's very important that it should be boiling. And you ladle it over the top. This releases all the aromas of the fresh herbs, and it cooks the meat to the point that it is just rare. The soup is seasoned to taste at the table with lime wedges and red pepper sauce, fish sauce, and seasoned vinegar. Ho Chi Minh City, once known as Saigon, lies 1,700 kilometers to the south of Hanoi. It's early in the morning and the market is really throbbing. The vegetable stall behind me is glorious. It's filled with the most wonderful greens. There are many different types of salad greens. There are different types of basil, different types of mint. There's all kinds of dill and many different kinds of parsley. And all of these are used in everyday Vietnamese food. A lot of vegetables in Vietnam are cooked with tiny amounts of minced pork. And that's how I'm going to cook these aubergines. Smoky aubergines in a lime sauce. Now, the first thing to do with the aubergine is that I have to roast them. You can do that under a grill, you can do that over charcoal, but I'm going to do it over gas. Before I do the smoking, I will prod the aubergine with a fork. This is to prevent it from bursting. And once that is done, you stand it over a low flame. Now, you can hold it with a pair of tongs like this, or you can just balance it, if it'll balance, on top of the gas. And start at the bottom. When the bottom is done, you turn it on its side and let one side char. Now, it must char slowly because the aubergine must cook through as well. This is the only cooking it's going to get, and it must get soft inside. Now here are the aubergines once they've been roasted. They look pretty burnt, but they aren't. Just the skin outside is charred. You can peel off all this charred skin by just holding the aubergine under running water and then peeling. This is what the peeled aubergine looks like. You can leave it just the way it is, or you can cut it into long strips and then fan them out. This gives it a very pretty design. Now here is the lovely lime sauce that goes over the aubergines. It has 4 tablespoons of fish sauce, which you can get at any Far Eastern or Southeast Asian grocer, 4 tablespoons of water, 4 tablespoons of lime juice, 3 tablespoons of sugar, 1 clove of garlic that is mashed, and 3 or 4 red and green hot chilies, which are all mixed together. There's only one thing left now, and that is to cook the pork. I have here a tablespoon of oil. Into this goes a clove of garlic, 2½ ounces of onion, and you just fry these around. Now in goes 4 ounces of minced pork, about 1/4 teaspoon of salt as well, and some black pepper. Now stir this around, break all the lumps. And this is 1 spring onion that has been sliced. That goes in at the end. I'm going to spoon some of this pork over the aubergine. And then take this lime sauce and pour just 4 tablespoons. You don't need more. The rest of the sauce you can take to the table for those who want more. You could serve this as a main dish. You could serve it as a vegetable dish, but I like to serve it as a first course all by itself. This is Thailand. It's a country filled with beauty, history, and fascinating traditions. And for lovers of food, it's a real paradise. Thai cooking is amongst the finest in Asia. It has such an exciting and sophisticated blend of flavors. A dish here can be hot, sweet, sour, and salty all at the same time. This is Chiang Mai, in the north of Thailand. The people around here make a wonderful salad called lab. It's made with beef, and it has one very unusual ingredient in it, rice. Rice which is used as a spice. So I have here 3 tablespoons of raw rice that will go into a heated frying pan, and I will stir the rice around until it is golden and roasted. Then take the rice out, let it cool for a little while, and then grind it either in a clean coffee grinder or in a mortar. And now for the beef. I have here 1 pound of minced beef. Get very good quality beef because it's not going to cook very much. And the other important thing is that the oil must be very, very hot. So there are 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil in here, and I'm going to put all the beef in. Now stir it around, break up all the lumps, and cook it until it is either slightly rare or fairly cooked, just as you like. Now all I have to do is dress the beef. I'm going to put in the ground roasted rice into the beef, 2½ ounces of either finely sliced red onions or shallots, 1 ounce of fresh mint leaves finely chopped, 2 cloves of garlic, also finely chopped, 1 red or green chili, very finely sliced. You can put more if you like. And then 1/4 teaspoon of chili powder, 1 tablespoon of sugar, 4 tablespoons of lime juice, and 4 tablespoons of fish sauce. This is a clear sauce made out of fermented fish, and it's as commonly used in Thailand as soy sauce is in China. It salts and it flavors all at the same time. You can get it at your Chinese grocers. So in this goes as well. Now I'll just toss it all together. Chilies with everything seems to be the Thai motto. They were brought here from South America by the Portuguese in the 16th century. Chilies are used in Thailand not just to flavor dishes, but to add a gorgeous, vibrant color as well. Just look at these chilies. They're so beautiful. Now, these little red and green chilies are called bird's eye chilies, and they're very, very hot. These are larger chilies, and they're less hot, and it is these that I'm going to use to flavor a dish called minced chicken stir-fried with basil. So one flavor is the heat from the chilies, and the other flavor will come from basil. In Thailand, they would use this basil, holy basil. As you can see, it's different. It has these rather strange but rather pretty purplish stems. If you can get it, do by all means use it. It's very good. But if you can't get it, then you can use ordinary basil. It'll work just as well. I have here 2 ounces of basil leaves, and I'm going to do something strange to them. I'm going to fry them. But before I fry them, I just want to show you how to do it. Now, I have here something called a splatter shield, and also a plate which has been lined with paper towels, waiting and ready. I have hot oil in a pan, and I'm going to throw in the leaves and quickly cover. Now you can take the splatter shield off and just fry the leaves. They turn crisp very quickly. These are done. And just take them out and put them on the paper towel. Get them all out. Now I'm ready to stir-fry the chicken. I have in this large frying pan 4 tablespoons of the same oil that I used to fry the basil. It's now very nicely flavored. And into that will go 3 ounces of sliced shallots or onions. You can use whichever you like. And 5 cloves of chopped garlic. And now I'll put in ginger, 1-inch cube of ginger, which has been very finely grated, and 2 hot red chilies sliced and 2 hot green chilies sliced for their color and their taste. So stir them around quickly. Then turn the heat up and put in not the basil that I fried before, but more basil. 2 ounces of basil leaves, fresh leaves, which have been chopped. And then put in chicken. Now there's a pound of minced chicken here. You cook it on high heat and keep breaking the lumps as you do so. When the chicken is browned and no longer pink at all, then I put in sugar, 1.5 teaspoons of brown sugar, that gives a nice flavor, and 5 teaspoons of fish sauce. Stir that around. Good, smells lovely. This dish isn't quite complete yet. The basil that I fried earlier is sprinkled over the top. Now, this is not just a garnish, it's an essential ingredient. It adds flavor and texture. This very spicy dish is best eaten with plain rice. Thank you. This inn is one of my favorite. It's so quiet and peaceful, and the service is just wonderful, and it's very personal. I have one person who'll serve me my entire meal. I've just had some sake, the wine, And to go with the sake are a number of wonderful little salads. I have here some radish salad, and then there's crab, which has been seasoned just beautifully with soy sauce and lime and a little stock. And here, now this is very interesting. Everything in Japan is very seasonal. This happens to be the autumn season, and this salad is made up of chrysanthemum leaves, chrysanthemum petals, and fresh shiitake mushrooms, and it's seasoned with sesame seeds, which makes it very nice. And all these together can be eaten with sake. I think I'll eat. This is a green bean salad made according to a recipe I got at the Tavaraya Inn. You can use any kind of green beans. You need 12 ounces of them. They should be tender, but the important thing with the beans is how you cut them, because in Japan the look of the bean is very important. These beans, which are fairly thick round beans, I've cut into 2-inch sections and then cut each section into about 6 pieces lengthwise. If the beans are thinner, like this, you can cut them into 2-inch lengths and then just halve them lengthwise. Once the beans have been cut, you drop them into a pot of lightly salted boiling water for about 2 or 3 minutes. They have to be just crisp but done. Drain them quickly, plunge them into cold water, take them out of the cold water and put them into stock, which is what I've done here. This is Japanese stock. And Japanese stock is very different from any other stock. It's made out of things that come out of the sea. For example, here is dried bonito, which is a big fish. It's dried and cut into flakes. And this is combined with a sea kelp, which is called kombu. Now, not all Japanese bother to make the traditional type of stock, which is called dashi. They just go out and buy it in a packet like this. And this is what it looks like. If you can't get Japanese stock of any kind, you can use light chicken stock. Just put the beans in about 10 fluid ounces of this light stock and let them sit there for about half an hour. Now I'm going to make the dressing for the green beans. The main ingredient for the dressing is sesame seeds. But first they have to be roasted and ground. So you take sesame seeds, 2½ tablespoons, and put them into a heated frying pan. Roast them around for about a minute or two till they turn golden. Take them out, put them into a clean coffee grinder and go bzz for just a few seconds, and they're done. The ground sesame seeds go into a bowl. You add a 1.5 tablespoons of Japanese soy sauce. This is called shoyu, and you can get it in health food shops. A tablespoon of the same stock that you use for soaking the beans, and a tablespoon of mirin. You get this in bottles. It's a sweetened Japanese sake. If you can't find it, use a 1.5 teaspoons of sugar mixed with a 1.5 teaspoons of the same stock, and then you mix it very nicely. This makes a nice thick dressing. Now the beans have been drained. Just pour the sauce over them and toss. When you see these little red and white lanterns, you know there'll be a warm, friendly welcome inside. This is Mr. Imai's yakitori bar. Yakitori literally means grilled chicken. You can make yakitori yourself on a barbecue. All they are really a kind of chicken kebab with a wonderfully sweet Japanese sauce. To make them yourself at home, you need 4 chicken legs. You have to bone them and then cut the meat into roughly 1-inch cubes. Then thread them onto a skewer, 2 pieces of chicken and 1 piece of green pepper. You need about 1 green pepper. And this much you can do way ahead of time. Of course, the man in the yakitori bar prepares all his sticks the previous night. Now, the Japanese would use these bamboo skewers. They would soak them in water for 30 minutes. This allows them to get slightly spongy so they don't burn. If you can't get bamboo skewers, you can use metal skewers, but try and get the kind that are flat at the end, rather like swords, because this allows the meat to stay steady and not flop around. Now, while these are cooking, there is a sauce, a lovely sweet basting sauce that is made up of 8 tablespoons of Japanese soy sauce, 4 tablespoons of Japanese rice wine, sake, and 3 tablespoons of sugar. You put all these into a pot and let it simmer. You want all the alcohol to boil away, and you want the sugar to dissolve, and the sauce should become a little syrupy. You don't baste until the chicken is 3/4 cooked, because the basting sauce has sugar in it and it tends to burn. Now, these are 3/4 done and they're ready to be basted. So I'll just lift them up and put them into the basting sauce. Turn it around, get it nicely covered with the sauce, and then put it back on the fire, and it cooks just a little bit more. I think I better taste one and see how it is. I think this is going to be a great addition to your next barbecue. Mr. Kang and his family live on Jeju Island at the southernmost tip of South Korea. One of their dinner dishes is bulgogi, or grilled beef. Chinam is being introduced to Korean cutlery. The uniquely Korean long metal spoon and narrow metal chopsticks.
지나면은 뭐든지 다 받아.
During a recent survey, children were asked what they liked best. Mother was first, beef was second, and father was third. How can I do other than show you Korea's favorite beef dish, bulgogi, or grilled meat? I have here 1.25 pounds of beef steak, which has been cut into thin slices, but before it's grilled, it has to be put in a marinade. Several ingredients for the marinade go into a blender. 4 tablespoons of Japanese soy sauce, 4 cloves of garlic, a 2-inch piece of fresh ginger, and a surprise ingredient. This is pear. It's a very special type of pear that they use. It's a hard, crunchy pear, which is sometimes called a pear apple. If you can't get it, you can use ordinary pear, about 4.5 ounces of it. All these go into a blender, you whiz the blender, and you end up with a paste that looks like this. The paste goes over the meat, straight from the blender. I also put in a carrot, which has been sliced, 4.5 ounces of onion, which are sliced, 4 or 5 mushrooms, large mushrooms, which are sliced, 3 spring onions, which have been cut into 2-inch lengths, sesame oil, about 2 tablespoons, 2.5 tablespoons of sugar, and 1 tablespoon of roasted sesame seeds. And all these are then mixed with the meat. Mix it well, and then leave the meat in the marinade for as little as 1 hour, if that's all the time you have, or if you have the time, then for 24 hours. Now, this pan is very hot, and I'm laying down pieces of meat, not the juice, just the pieces of meat, directly in the pan. And they cook very fast. All they have to do is get slightly rare and brown on the top. Just put in as many as will fit very easily. Once all the beef has been browned and taken out of the pan, you put in the onions and vegetables and all the juices and cook them over very high heat until the juices have practically disappeared, and then empty the vegetables over the meat. Mrs. Han and her family live in a suburb in Seoul, the capital of South Korea. She invited me to have dinner with her and to watch the preparations. jars in all the houses. This is where you
Yes.
keep your sauces.
Yes.
Which one is this?
This one is the soybean sauce. Korean word doenjang.
Doenjang.
Yes, doenjang. So this one is gochujang.
Gochujang.
And red pepper sauce.
Red pepper
Yes.
sauce. It looks very red and
Yes.
very delicious.
Delicious, but very spicy.
Oops, what sauce is this?
This is soju. I hired this sauce for my husband.
You hide the drink from your husband. I hide it
Yes.
right back then. All right. The family, like the Kang family, are also having bulgogi for dinner. Korean food was the hottest I ate anywhere in the Far East, but this delicious custard, keranchim, is an exception. I have a passion for the savory custards from this part of the world. You can find them in China and Japan as well. This is a particularly delightful one. The basic ingredient is eggs. There are 5 eggs in here. To that I shall add 3/4 teaspoon salt, 4 teaspoons soy sauce, this is Japanese soy sauce, and a tablespoon of sesame oil. And then all you do is whisk it all together. I'm also going to add a pint of water to this. Mix it all well. Now this needs to be strained. The reason for straining them is to get rid of the froth and also to get rid of the kalaze. It's a new word for me. Anyway, it means the thread-like stuff that eggs have in them. So that will all come out. See, there's a lot of it in here. And then I'm going to add about 6 to 8 mushrooms, which have been finely sliced. They go in. And about 3 spring onions, also very finely sliced. And you must use all the green portion of the spring onion. Then 4 ounces of prawns. Now, these have been cut. They're raw prawns, and they're cut into 1/2-inch bits. Put them in also. About a clove of garlic. That goes in. It's been mashed nicely. And then mix all this in. Then I have some roasted sesame seeds, about a tablespoon of them. I'm going to sprinkle them over the top. They add flavor, and also they become a kind of garnish. And now this is ready for steaming. I'm going to steam in a wok. There's a trivet at the bottom to keep the dish off the floor of the wok. Now this needs to be covered. I'll pour in enough extra water so that it comes about 3/4 of the way up the sides of the dish. This is really steamed and coddled at the same time. Put a second cover on the wok and just let it simmer very gently for about 25 minutes. Malacca was the home of the first Chinese settlers in Malaysia. They became known as the Straits Chinese. Nyonya cookery schools have sprung up and caught the imagination of all Malaysians. And I'm not surprised, because the food is wonderful. The mixture of influences is seen in the ingredients. Bean paste from China, coriander from India, and a local spice, lesser galangal.
1 teaspoon peppercorn.
The resultant spice base being fried in a wok is something you wouldn't see in China. These Nyonya dishes are absolutely delicious. This one is called chicken with bamboo shoots and mushrooms in black bean sauce. And I'm just going to work my way through the title. First of all, the chicken. Now, this is 2 1/4 pounds of dark chicken meat. I have used legs, and I've cut each thigh into 2 pieces, like this, and each drumstick into 2 pieces as well. So that's the chicken. Now we come to the bamboo shoots. These are tinned bamboo shoots in water. And when you get them out of the tin, they are about this size. And what you do is just cut them so they're a bit smaller, like 1-inch chunks. When you're buying them, just look for winter bamboo shoots because they tend to be a little more tender. And now for the mushrooms. These are wonderful dried Chinese mushrooms. You can get them in Chinese markets just this way. I've taken about 10 or 12 mushrooms and soaked them in a pint of warm water for about 30 minutes. At that stage, you take them out of the water and they look like this. The cap gets very nice and soft, but the stem remains quite hard. So you need to cut it off. So just put it on a chopping board and just discard it and just keep the cap. And now for the black bean sauce. This is very easy to put together. I have 6 cloves of chopped garlic, about 4 ounces of shallots or onions, and 3 tablespoons of black bean sauce. So you put all these things together with 4 tablespoons of water and then throw them all into a blender and blend until you have a paste which looks like this. The paste goes into 3 tablespoons of heated oil. And then you have to stir it and fry it for about 2 or 3 minutes until it separates from the oil. That's a really good test that the paste is ready. The paste is now ready. I put in all the chicken, all the bamboo shoots, all the mushrooms. Now you remember the mushrooms were soaking in liquid. I've strained that liquid, and that liquid goes in as well. Now all you do is bring it to a boil, cover and cook on medium heat for about 15 minutes. And then just take the lid off and turn the heat up and reduce the sauce. It should have a thick clinging sauce. This takes about 5 minutes. When the sauce is reduced, I'm going to put in a mixture of 1.5 teaspoons of molasses and 1.5 teaspoons of dark soy sauce, and then stir around for another 30 seconds or so, and then the dish is done. You can find the best Malay-style food in Penang right here. Among the things I liked about this restaurant were the relaxed family atmosphere and the excellent cooking. Aminabi, Mina for short, is the owner and driving force, and everyone in the family is included in the business. These wonderfully colorful Malay curries taste as good as they look. I'm going to make spicy prawn and cucumber curry, gulai labu. It's really easy to do. I have here an empty pot, and into that I'm going to put 3 ounces of chopped shallots. You can use onions if you like. 4 cloves of garlic, which have also been chopped. 2 tablespoons of ground coriander seeds. 1 tablespoon of ground cumin seeds. 1 teaspoon of ground fennel seeds. 1 teaspoon of ground turmeric, and 1 teaspoon of white pepper. Now, you might think this is a bit excessive. Actually, they would use more than I'm using. Don't forget that pepper is the main hot spice of this region, and until the 16th century, it was their only hot spice. It was the Portuguese who introduced hot red chilies to this area. But since they introduced them, I'm also going to put them in. I'm going to put in 4 dried red chilies, which I'm just going to crumble and throw in. Then 3/4 pint water gets poured in. And I'll bring this to a simmer. Now, the water is very interesting because most of the times spices are fried. Here they're just going to be boiled, which makes me think that this dish probably originated in the villages of either eastern or southern India, where this tradition is quite common. Well, this looks ready now, so I shall put in the cucumbers. There are 10 ounces of thickly sliced cucumbers that go in. Now, just bring this to a simmer and cover and let the cucumbers simmer for about 5 minutes. And now I'm ready for the prawns. 10 ounces of raw peeled prawns and a teaspoon of salt and a teaspoon of sugar. And I need to now stir this around for about a minute. Prawns don't take long to cook. This should be done on very high heat. And then you put in the coconut milk. I have here 14 fluid ounces of coconut milk. In they go. You bring the contents of the pot to a boil and then simmer for a minute and turn off the heat. But there's one step left now. I've got 2 tablespoons of oil in this frying pan, and I will put into it 2 cloves of slivered garlic, an ounce of slivered shallots. You can use onions if you like, and stir them around until they turn golden and crisp. They're wonderfully brown now. I will put a teaspoon of whole fennel seeds, stir them around very quickly, and then you pick up the frying pan, throw in the oil and all the spices and quickly cover to contain all the wonderful aromas. During my visit to the city of Yogyakarta in central Java in Indonesia, I ate some wonderful soups. The Chuk family served soto Madura, spicy chicken and noodle soup. I crossed Yogyakarta in search of another of these soups. Amri Yahya took me to his favorite cafe for soto paksule, a mutton and vegetable soup created by the cafe owner, Mr. Soleil. Now, do you eat this for breakfast, lunch, dinner?
Usually for breakfast.
So this is like a breakfast soup.
That's right.
I'm just about to eat soto ayam, Indonesia's famous chicken soup. But this is no ordinary chicken soup. It's made up of lots of little parts, and everyone at the dining table puts together their own soup. Let me tell you what these parts are. Now, here are some crisply fried onions and crisply fried potatoes. I'll show you how to do this. It's quite easy. You put 2 ounces of finely sliced onions into hot oil, about a 1/4 inch of oil, and then stir and fry them on medium heat till they are crisp. These are now golden, crisp, and done. I'm going to drain all the oil out, and then let all the oil come out, and then spread them out on a paper towel so they get nice and crisp. And you do the potatoes in exactly the same way. Now I'm going to assemble my soup. I have in my bowl mung bean sprouts that have been topped and tailed, which means that their very tops and their very bottoms have been pinched off. Then they've been dropped into boiling water for just a few seconds and drained. That's the first thing. Also, I'm going to put in some poached chicken breast, which has been shredded, some of that. Let's see. Now, on top of this goes some wonderfully flavored chicken stock. Let me show you how to make that. First, you make a spice paste. Now, this has in it 3 ounces of onions or shallots chopped up, 3 cloves of garlic, which have also been chopped, and the Indonesians would use a nut called a candle nut. It's called a candle nut because you can actually light it. Of course, if you can't find it, you can use raw cashew nuts or raw macadamia nuts. And you blend them all together with 4 tablespoons of water. Put the spice paste into the oil left over from frying the onions and potatoes. The spice paste is now nicely golden and brown, and it's separated from the oil. And now I can put in the stock. This is chicken stock. Going to ladle this lovely stock on top. I think I want more. Then I put the seasonings. Let's see. I will put some very finely sliced spring onions, lots of those, some celery leaves which have been chopped. You can put some of that. And then these potatoes, which I took a while to cook, they go on the top. Some of these onions, nice and crisp over the top as well. And then I want lots of this red chili vinegar sambal. I think I want another one. I want it nice and spicy. Now I'm ready to eat. It's just delicious. Indonesia is a country made up of 13,000 islands surrounded by rich fishing waters. Mr. Jaffrey lives in Padang, on the coast of the island of Sumatra. He fishes for his living in the Indian Ocean. We can't all get the wonderful tropical fish of the Indian Ocean, so I'm going to use a 1 1/4 pound trout to make a wonderful dish from West Sumatra, which is spicy grilled fish or ikan panggang. There are 2 marinades in this fish, and the first one is already on it. It consists of a ½ teaspoon of salt and a tablespoon of lime juice. But first, before you put that on, you have to cut very deep diagonal slits all along the length of the fish on both sides. You let the fish sit in the first marinade for 20 to 30 minutes. Now I'm going to make the second marinade. Now, most of the ingredients for this paste you will probably be familiar with. There are 3½ ounces of red pepper chopped up, 2 ounces of shallots or onions, 3 cloves of garlic chopped, about a ½ cube of fresh ginger, 2 tablespoons of lime juice, a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, a 1/4 teaspoon of ground turmeric, and 3 dried red chilies. Now, here are some ingredients that you may not know too much about. This is sliced, dried lemongrass, and you need about a tablespoon or so of it, and 3 slices of galangal, dried galangal. But in Indonesia, they use some of these ingredients fresh. This is what galangal looks like when it's fresh. It's rather like ginger, and it behaves very much like ginger. You have to peel it, and then if you can get it fresh at all, take about a ½ piece and put it into your blender along with the other ingredients. And this is lemongrass, wonderfully aromatic. It looks like this. You need to use about 5 inches and slice it very thin, and also throw it just the way it is into a blender, and then you end up with this wonderful spice paste, or the second marinade. You mix the spice paste with 7 fluid ounces of coconut milk. You can get good quality tinned coconut milk. Just open it up and see that it's nice, creamy, and white. That's very important. Now, once this is well mixed, I'm going to just pour it over the fish. And make sure that it goes into all the slits, and the fish sits in this marinade for about 10 minutes before it is ready to be grilled. Now the fire is nice and hot. I shall put the fish directly on it. Now, I'm using a hinged fish holder. You can buy many types in the market. They're very useful because you can turn the fish over easily several times, and you need to do that in this. And as you turn it, each time you turn it, you baste it with the marinating juices. I've got a very interesting baster. Actually, it's a piece of lemongrass. It's just been bashed at the end and made into a brush. And it adds flavor to the fish as you cook it. You let it sit for about 3 minutes or so, and then you turn it, and you keep doing that for about 20 minutes until the fish is done. Just remember, though, in the last 5 minutes, don't baste, because you want the spices that are on it to cook completely and get nice and crusted. The quality of the food and the expertise in preparing it surpasses what may be found in China itself. The birthplace of the noodle was probably China as well. This dish, cold sesame noodles, is from Western China. Now, the Chinese would use egg and wheat noodles for this. The noodles are quite thin, and of course they would use fresh noodles. You can only get fresh noodles at Chinese grocers here. So if you can't find them, use dried noodles. Cook any noodles as you would pasta. Just drop them into a pot of boiling water. Keep testing them because they cook very fast. And as soon as they're done, drain them, rinse them out in cold water, and then toss them with a little sesame oil. This is important because this keeps the noodles from sticking to each other. I have here 4 ounces of chicken breast, which has been poached and then shredded, and 4 ounces of cucumber. The cucumber has been peeled and cut into very fine strips. This is important because of the look of the dish. Then there are 2 ounces of carrots, 2 ounces of celery, and 2 spring onions. And all these vegetables have been dropped into boiling water and blanched very quickly. And I've saved some of the vegetables because I'm going to use them for garnishing later on. Here is the delicious dressing for the noodles. The main ingredient in it is sesame paste. You can buy this ready-made. It's made out of roasted sesame seeds, and you can get it at Chinese grocers and health food shops. Then there are 2 tablespoons of sesame oil. This dish is from Western China, where the food can be quite hot. So also in the sauce are a 1/4 teaspoon of chili powder and 2 teaspoons of chili oil, which you can either buy or you can make yourself at home. 2 tablespoons of light soy sauce, a tablespoon of white vinegar, a teaspoon of sugar, and 5 tablespoons of chicken stock, all of which are mixed together to make a really wonderful thick sauce. You can see it's not thin at all. It's rather lovely and thick. Now, all this you can do ahead of time. The only thing to do just before you sit down to eat is mix it all together. The sauce goes in, and then all the vegetables and the chicken. And then all you have to do is toss it well. You can serve cold sesame noodles as a main dish. I love to serve it as a first course. They've been racing horses at Happy Valley since the 1840s. It's the only place where gambling is allowed by law. The punters are interested in fast horses and fast food. For the traditionalists, there are boxes of rice and roast pork. But the favorite here is fried chicken leg. A grand total of 2,000 are sold each race day. I discovered a more winning way with chicken elsewhere in Hong Kong. The main city of eastern China, Shanghai, has given to the world fried chicken with spring onion sauce. For it, you need 3 pounds of whole chicken legs. In Shanghai, they use the whole chicken, beak and all, but I've decided to use the legs because the meat stays much more tender when it's fried. So what I will do with the chicken is prod it with the point of a knife all over the meaty section so the marinade goes well into the meat. These have the most wonderful aroma. I am roasting Sichuan peppercorns. I have them in a pan without any oil, and I just dry roast them for a few minutes before I grind them. And once I've done that, I'm ready to put all the marinade ingredients in. First, the 2 teaspoons of roasted and crushed peppercorns. Then a 1-inch cube of ginger, which has been very finely diced. And 1 spring onion, which has been very finely sliced. And 2 tablespoons of light soy sauce. That goes in. And about a 1/2 teaspoon of sugar. And once all that is in, I'm going to mix it up all with my hands. Just mix it well, rub it in like this. And then you can set this meat aside for 2 to 4 hours, and if you like, you can even refrigerate it. The spring onion sauce for the chicken can be made ahead of time, but it's a good idea to keep the semi-dry ingredients quite separated from the very wet ones, and then to combine them at the end, because this way the semi-dry ingredients retain a very nice crunch. In this bowl go very finely chopped garlic, spring onions, celery, coriander stems, and ginger. And here are the wet ingredients which have been put together. They include white vinegar and chicken stock, tomato ketchup, sugar, sesame oil, and light soy sauce. After the chicken has finished marinating, I dust it with about 3 tablespoons of corn flour, and then it's ready to be deep fried. You can use a wok for deep frying, as the Chinese do, or you can use a deep fat fryer. In either case, remember that the temperature should be moderate. You will need to cook it at this moderate temperature for about 15 to 20 minutes. Just test the chicken, just make sure that the juices run clear at the end. When the chicken is still nice and hot, just mix the 2 lots of ingredients for the sauce together and pour them over. After this culinary tour of the Far East, I hope you will try and cook some of these dishes for yourself. They're really not difficult. And once you've experienced these special tastes, I'm sure you will want to try more and more. There are over 160 recipes and lots more information about the 8 countries in my book, Madhur Jaffrey's Far Eastern Cookery, which is available from bookshops everywhere. If you have any trouble finding any of these special ingredients, there's a free BBC list of ethnic grocers, many of whom operate a mail order service. There's also a BBC starter kit for Far Eastern ingredients. If you want information about ethnic grocers or the starter kit, then write to Far Eastern Cookery, BBC Education, London, W12 7RJ. Please enclose a large, self-addressed, stamped envelope.